Hi, my name is Yana, and I did the Re-Lulling ceremony about 4 months ago now. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience. Before I do that, I wanted to provide just a little bit of color about me personally. I am a mom to two young boys, and I'm also an executive with a nonprofit. So maybe not the person you would associate with doing something like this right off the bat, although I think it's actually really meaningful for people that maybe come for the non-traditional background for a ceremony. One of the things that really appealed to me about Svetlana and Svetlana is that they come from a really scientific and process-driven approach to what they're doing, which is something that you don't often see in this space. I'm, very interested in data and analytics. It's a big part of what I do for my job. And so I really wanted to partner with people that had that emotional approach and had the psychological backing, but weren't exclusively focused on how we feel, which is important, but it's something that has to come with a degree of accountability and systematic rigor, which I really felt like they did well. So in particular, I came because I was in a place where I just felt emotionally overwhelmed. I had my older son 6 years ago, and my younger son is 3, and so I've been balancing a lot of work. I've changed jobs a couple of times. My husband has changed jobs a couple of times. And so there's just a lot going on in my life where I just felt like I needed an emotional, kind of relieve that emotional burden. And so I came fully intending to focus on some of my childhood trauma. I thought that's really where the Re-Lulling ceremony was going to take me. What I discovered is that, somewhat unsurprisingly, but where I derived the most benefit was really focusing on my relationship with my older son. I had a lot of trauma with my birth with my older son. I had a 34-hour labor that started as a natural labor and, really ended with just a lot of challenges. My postpartum with him was really difficult, and so I probably did not build a lot of the security bonds that I'd hoped to build with him when he was a baby. And that impacted me, I think, more than I realized in terms of my relationship with him and my relationship as a mom. And this came out. I think a lot of people talk about their experience as a child in the ceremony. So the ceremony has kind of a part where you act as a child and a part where you act as a mother. For me, the mother part really triggered a lot of my difficulty kind of accepting some of my early motherhood. And it enabled me to work through a lot of those feelings and emotions and kind of approach it from this perspective of how do I take this into my relationship with my son, which I feel like has become dramatically better. Accepting him for who he is, thinking about how to helping him work through his feelings. He's a very sensitive child, and sometimes that used to be really overwhelming for me, but I think focusing on it as an approach to taking less personally and seeing my role as someone who can work through his emotions in the appropriate way has not just changed our relationship, but I feel like has really impacted the way that he has been able to cope through his many, many emotions in a much better way. As someone who's also really interested, as I mentioned, in data, one of the interesting takeaways that I've had is, like a couple days after I did the ceremony, I have an Apple Watch, and I was looking through the data on my Apple Watch, and I realized that my respiratory rate had dropped 30%, basically the days following the ceremony, and had stayed that way. So for 4 months, my respiratory rate was at 30% lower, meaning, right, that I'm able to take fuller breaths, I'm taking fewer breaths, and that very much speaks to my experience. I've just felt so much calmer, so much more at peace with myself about some of the things that I had thought I would struggle with. And it's not that some of the other things, some of my trauma did come out, but I was surprised that it enabled me to heal a part that maybe I was kind of avoiding delving deeply into, which I think is what happens. And so I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for people that maybe aren't that invested in like the traditional new age type of approach. This is really grounded in a lot of science, a lot of processes that have been tested for, in some cases, thousands of years. And the relationships that I built with the women in the ceremony were also wonderful. So I strongly encourage you to do this, even if it's something that you've been avoiding or it's not necessarily your traditional cup of tea. This is one that's really worth investing in.